Los Angeles International Airport was, as always, a microcosm of the world, a flowing river of humanity teeming with hurry, anticipation, farewells, and reunions. Amidst this vast, echoing space, Keanu Reeves moved with a practiced quietness, a skill honed over decades of navigating public life. His destination, the first-class gate for a long, transatlantic flight back to London after wrapping commitments in LA. He wasn't seeking attention. Quite the opposite. He craved the contained anonymity of the airplane cabin, a rare bubble of time suspended between continents, a chance to simply be, dressed in his usual understated uniform, dark, comfortable jeans, a soft, plain t-shirt, a well-worn but quality leather jacket, and sturdy boots. He blended in more than most would expect of a global superstar. A simple beanie sat low on his brow, sunglasses shielded his eyes. He carried no flashy luggage, just a simple, functional carry-on. He observed the people around him with his characteristically thoughtful gaze, noticing the small dramas playing out. A tearful goodbye, a child's excited pointing, a business traveler's harried phone call. These snippets of ordinary life grounded him. Reaching the priority boarding lane for Trans-Pacific Airways, Flight 101, he queued briefly. When his turn came, he handed his boarding pass and passport to the gate agent. The agent, Olivia Stanton, was the picture of crisp professionalism. In her late 30s or early 40s, her uniform was immaculate, her blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun, her posture rigid, her smile polite but distant. She glanced at the passport photo, then at Keanu, then back at the name. Reeves, Keanu. A flicker of surprise crossed her features, quickly suppressed. She processed his boarding pass but hesitated for a fraction of a second as her eyes scanned his simple attire. It didn't quite compute with her internal checklist for first-class clientele. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Reeves," she said, her voice perfectly modulated but lacking genuine warmth. "Enjoy your flight." Keanu offered a polite nod and proceeded down the jet bridge. He hadn't missed Olivia's brief hesitation, the subtle judgment in her eyes. It was a familiar, wearying tune, the expectation that fame should always come packaged in overt displays of wealth or glamour. He preferred his anonymity, the freedom to just be a person on a journey. He boarded the spacious aircraft. Another flight attendant, younger, with a friendlier demeanor, Sam, greeted him warmly and showed him to his window seat in the sparsely populated first-class cabin. Keanu settled in, placing his small bag overhead, removing his jacket. As he did, the small, simple silver crucifix hanging from a thin, worn chain around his neck became visible against his plain black t-shirt. It wasn't large or ornate. It was aged silver, its edges smoothed by time and touch, suggesting a long personal history rather than religious ostentation. For Keanu, it was deeply personal, a reminder of resilience, a connection to moments of profound difficulty where faith, in its broadest sense, had been an anchor. He touched it briefly, a subconscious gesture of grounding himself before the long flight, then leaned back, closing his eyes, welcoming the relative peace. As the plane completed boarding and taxied towards the runway, Olivia Stanton made her final checks of the first-class cabin. Her gaze swept professionally over the passengers. When her eyes landed on Keanu, they lingered for a moment longer than necessary, fixing on the small silver cross resting against his shirt. A frown line appeared between her brows. "That necklace," she thought. "It seems out of place here. Too personal. Too visible." Olivia prided herself on maintaining a serene, neutral, almost hotel lobby-like atmosphere in her cabin. Anything that felt too individual, too potentially controversial or ideological, subtly grated against her sense of order and professional control. It wasn't explicitly against the rules, she knew, but it felt inappropriate for this exclusive space. She told herself it was about passenger comfort. What if someone else was offended? What if it sparked a conversation? First class was supposed to be about seamless, unobtrusive service and absolute comfort, free from potential discord. But deep down, perhaps, there was also a more personal discomfort, a bias she wouldn't readily admit, against overt displays she didn't understand or personally approve of. She decided she had to address it, framing it within the guise of policy and consideration for others. After the plane reached cruising altitude and the initial drink service was underway, Olivia approached Keanu's seat. She knelt slightly, bringing herself closer to his level, adopting a tone of practiced, confidential concern. "Mr. Reeves," she began softly, her professional smile firmly in place, "I hope you're settling in comfortably for our flight to London?" Keanu opened his eyes, turning slightly towards her. "Yes, thank you. Everything's fine." Olivia leaned a fraction closer. "I just wanted to gently mention something regarding our airline's general cabin policies," she continued, her voice a low murmur. "To ensure a comfortable and neutral environment for all our diverse passengers, especially in these premium cabins, we generally encourage guests to keep any particularly prominent personal symbols, perhaps a bit more discreet." Her eyes flickered almost involuntarily towards the crucifix. Keanu followed her gaze, then looked back at her, his expression calm, neutral. "I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand. Are you referring to my necklace?" Olivia gave a small, tight nod. "Yes, precisely. It's just that, well, some symbols can carry strong connotations for different people, and our aim is to maintain an atmosphere where no one might potentially feel uncomfortable or—" She searched for the right word. "Distracted." Keanu remained silent for a beat, processing her words. "Uncomfortable?" he finally asked, his voice quiet but clear. "By this small cross?" He touched it lightly. "It's quite understated, wouldn't you say?" "Of course, personally, I—" Olivia quickly backtracked, realizing she might have overstepped. "It's not about personal opinion, Mr. Reeves. Purely about maintaining that neutral space for everyone. A general guideline. Perhaps," she gestured vaguely towards his shirt collar, "it could be tucked inside, just during the flight?" Keanu's gaze remained steady. "I've flown countless times on many different airlines wearing this. No one has ever suggested it was inappropriate or distracting." His voice was still calm, but a hint of firmness entered it. "Is there a specific written rule you can show me that prohibits wearing a small crucifix?" Olivia felt her cheeks flush slightly. She knew there wasn't. Not, not a specific rule about crucifixes. No, she stammered slightly. It falls under our general guidelines for professional decorum and avoiding potentially divisive displays in shared spaces. "Divisive?" Keanu echoed the word softly, letting it hang in the air. "You find this symbol divisive?" He wasn't asking aggressively, but the question itself was a challenge to her premise. "Who exactly has complained? Or is this your interpretation of a potential issue?" Olivia felt cornered. She fell back on procedure. "Sir, I'm simply trying to uphold the standards expected in first class and ensure a comfortable flight for all passengers. It's a simple request out of consideration." Keanu leaned back slightly, his gaze unwavering. "And I appreciate consideration, Olivia." He used her name, read from her tag earlier, making it more personal. "But consideration must go both ways. This isn't just an accessory, it's deeply personal." He paused, then decided to offer a glimpse, perhaps hoping understanding might follow. "This cross," he said, his voice lowering slightly, becoming more intimate, drawing the attention of the passenger across the aisle, who subtly paused her movie, "was given to me many years ago, during a time of profound loss and difficulty. It became a reminder, not necessarily of organized religion in the way most think, but of resilience, of hope found in darkness, of survival." He looked directly at Olivia. "It's been with me through situations you probably couldn't imagine, filming in dangerous locations, long nights in hospital waiting rooms, periods of deep personal grief. It's a touchstone, a reminder that I got through those times, that faith in something, anything, even just surviving the next hour, is possible. Asking me to hide it is asking me to hide a fundamental part of my own story, my own survival." His words, delivered without drama, but with quiet conviction, filled the space around them. The air crackled with unspoken tension. Olivia was momentarily speechless. His explanation shifted the ground entirely. This wasn't about airline policy. It was about personal history, trauma, and faith. Her justification about neutrality suddenly felt shallow, insensitive. Nearby passengers were now openly listening, sensing the gravity of the exchange. Young Sam, the other flight attendant, hovered nervously near the galley, watching. But Olivia, perhaps feeling her authority challenged or genuinely believing she was still upholding a necessary standard, hardened her expression again after a moment's hesitation. "Mr. Reeves, I understand it has personal significance," she said, falling back into her official tone. "But company policy prioritizes the collective comfort." Keanu interrupted her gently but firmly. "Are you telling me my personal symbol of hope and survival is less important than someone else's potential, unspecified discomfort? Has anyone actually expressed discomfort?" Olivia flushed again. "As I said, then perhaps the policy needs re-examining," Keanu stated simply. "Or perhaps its interpretation does, because what you're asking feels less like ensuring neutrality and more like policing personal belief, however quietly held." Olivia saw she was losing this argument and losing control. She drew herself up. "Mr. Reeves, if you continue to refuse a simple crew instruction regarding cabin decorum, I will have no choice but to inform Captain Miller and log this as a passenger non-compliance incident." Keanu met her gaze, his expression calm, almost weary now. "Please do, Olivia. Inform the captain. Let's hear his perspective on your interpretation of decorum." He then turned back toward the window, signaling the conversation from his side was over for now. Olivia stood there for a moment, flustered and uncertain, before turning sharply and walking towards the cockpit. The cabin waited in hushed anticipation. The minutes following Olivia's departure towards the cockpit felt stretched and heavy. The low hum of the engine seemed louder in the absence of conversation. Passengers exchanged quiet glances. The man who had been filming earlier subtly readjusted his phone's angle. Sam, the younger attendant, busied himself in the galley, avoiding eye contact with anyone, though his tension was palpable. Keanu remained perfectly still, gazing out the window at the endless expanse of blue sky and white clouds, his face betraying no emotion, the small silver cross resting quietly against his shirt. He wasn't angry, not really, more disappointed. Disappointed that even here, miles above the earth, petty judgments in the misuse of perceived authority could intrude on simple existence. He thought about the nature of symbols, how they could mean so much to one person and be perceived so differently, sometimes with suspicion or discomfort, by another. Was neutrality achieved by erasing all personal markers or by accepting their quiet presence? Olivia returned from the front of the plane, her face set in a tight, unreadable mask. She didn't look at Keanu but resumed her duties, her movements sharp, almost aggressive. Keanu wondered if she had spoken to the captain or if she was merely trying to reassert her control through professional routine. Another 10 minutes passed. Then the cockpit door opened and Captain Miller emerged. He was a man in his 50s with a calm, weathered face that spoke of years spent navigating skies, both clear and turbulent. His uniform was immaculate, his bearing authoritative but not intimidating. He didn't immediately head towards Keanu's seat, but first had a brief, quiet word with Olivia and Sam in the galley area. Keanu couldn't hear what was said, but he saw Olivia gesturing, her expression tight, while Sam looked uncomfortable. Finally, Captain Miller walked calmly down the aisle. He acknowledged other passengers with a polite nod. When he reached Keanu's seat, he stopped. Olivia and Sam stood a respectful distance behind him. "Mr. Reeves," the captain began, his voice calm and professional, meeting Keanu's gaze directly. "I'm Captain Miller. Olivia brought a situation to my attention regarding cabin policy and passenger comfort. Would you mind sharing your perspective with me briefly?" His approach was direct, respectful, and non-accusatory. Keanu appreciated the captain's demeanor. He nodded slowly. "Captain," he started, his voice quiet but clear, "your flight attendant, Ms. Stanton, approached me regarding the small crucifix I wear." He gestured briefly towards it. "She suggested, citing general policies about neutrality and potential passenger discomfort, that I should conceal it during the flight." Captain Miller listened intently, his expression neutral. Keanu continued, "I explained that this item holds significant personal meaning for me, related to faith, survival, and memory, and that it's small, discreet, and not intended to provoke anyone. I also mentioned I've flown countless times without issue. I asked if there was a specific written rule prohibiting such an item, or if any passenger had actually complained. "And," the captain prompted gently. "And," Keanu said, "Ms. Stanton could not cite a specific rule, nor confirm any actual passenger complaint. It seemed to be based on her interpretation of potential discomfort or maintaining a certain cabin atmosphere. I respectfully declined her request to hide it, suggesting she consult with you if she felt it was a serious policy matter." Keanu finished speaking, his gaze steady on the captain. Captain Miller absorbed this, then turned slightly towards Olivia. "Olivia," he said, his voice still calm but carrying unmistakable authority, "can you show me the specific regulation in our manual that addresses small, personal, religious, or sentimental necklaces worn discreetly by passengers in first class?" Olivia's face flushed. "Well, Captain, it's not explicitly worded for necklaces, but the General Code of Conduct implies—" The captain held up a hand gently. "Implies? Olivia, our policies are based on ensuring safety, security, and reasonable comfort for all. They are not typically based on subjective interpretations of what might potentially offend someone's sensibilities regarding a small personal item, especially when no actual complaint has been lodged." He looked back at Keanu, then glanced briefly at the crucifix. "Our airline respects diversity, including diversity of faith and personal expression, within the bounds of safety and genuine disturbance to others." He turned fully back to Olivia. "I see no violation here. Mr. Reeves is well within his rights. Please ensure he and all passengers enjoy the rest of their flight without unnecessary disturbance over such matters." Olivia stood frozen for a second, the public but quiet refutation stinging her professional pride. "Yes, Captain," she finally managed to say, her voice tight. Captain Miller gave Keanu a respectful nod. "My apologies again for this interruption, Mr. Reeves. Please don't hesitate to let the crew know if you need anything else." He then turned and walked back towards the cockpit. The confrontation was over, resolved not with drama, but with quiet reason and authority. Olivia avoided Keanu's gaze and quickly returned to the galley. Sam offered Keanu a small, almost imperceptible nod of respect before following Olivia. The tension in the cabin slowly dissipated, replaced by the normal hum of the flight. Keanu closed his eyes again, not in frustration this time, but in quiet contemplation of the encounter. The remainder of the flight passed uneventfully on the surface. Service continued, passengers read or slept. The plane hummed steadily towards Los Angeles. But the atmosphere, at least in Keanu's section, and for the crew involved, had irrevocably shifted. The quiet drama had left an imprint. Olivia Stanton performed her duties with meticulous professionalism, but her earlier rigidity was gone, replaced by a subdued, almost fragile demeanor. She moved through the cabin efficiently, but avoided lingering near Keanu's seat, her eyes often downcast. Keanu caught her glancing his way once or twice, her expression unreadable. Was it resentment, lingering confusion, or the dawn of shame? He couldn't tell. He felt no triumph, only a quiet sadness that such a confrontation had even been necessary. He wondered what discomfort, or perhaps hidden prejudice, had driven her actions. Was it truly about the cross? Or was it about him not fitting her image of a first-class passenger initially, the cross simply becoming a tangible point for her misplaced sense of unease or need for control? Keanu found himself reflecting deeply. This small silver cross, it had been a gift from someone dear, long gone now, given during a period of immense personal turmoil. He wasn't overtly religious in the traditional sense, didn't attend services regularly, but this object had become imbued with meaning through experience. It had rested against his skin during harrowing film shoots in remote locations, during lonely nights in unfamiliar hotel rooms, grappling with scripts or personal demons, during quiet visits to hospital bedsides of loved ones. It was a connection to resilience, a reminder of constance in a life often defined by transience and illusion. To be asked to hide it felt like being asked to deny a part of his own hard-won peace, his own quiet narrative of survival. He understood the desire for neutrality in public spaces, but where did neutrality end and the erasure of personal identity, faith, or memory begin? Wasn't true respect found in acknowledging differences quietly, rather than demanding conformity? He thought about Captain Miller's handling of the situation, calm, fair, based on facts and respect rather than subjective feelings or vague policies. That was leadership, not the assertion of power, but the application of reason and empathy. He hoped Olivia might learn from it. As the plane began its descent into Los Angeles, the familiar sprawl of lights emerged from the darkness below. The landing was smooth. As passengers began gathering their belongings, Olivia Stanton approached Keanu's seat one last time. She stood before him, no professional mask left, just a woman looking tired and deeply embarrassed. "Mr. Reeves," she started, her voice low and trembling slightly. "Before we land, I need to properly apologize, not just for the inconvenience, but for my judgment. You were right. It wasn't about policy. It was about me, my own discomfort, my own blindness, perhaps. I am truly sorry for my behavior." Keanu looked up at her. He saw the genuine remorse in her eyes. He simply nodded slowly. "Thank you for saying that, Olivia," he replied softly. "It takes courage to face that." He didn't offer absolution, didn't minimize what happened, but acknowledged her apology with grace. "We all have things to learn," he added gently. Olivia seemed to exhale, a weight lifting from her shoulders. "Thank you," she whispered again, then quickly moved away to assist other passengers. Keanu gathered his bag. As he deplaned, stepping out into the familiar chaos of LAX, he felt a sense of quiet resolution. The incident hadn't been pleasant, but perhaps it had served a purpose. Not just for him, but for Olivia, maybe even for the captain who reaffirmed the right principles. He walked through the terminal, beanie back on, blending into the crowd. No one seemed to recognize him now. He preferred it that way. True value, true identity, he reflected, wasn't in the recognition of others, but in the quiet integrity you held within yourself. Symbolized perhaps, sometimes, by something as simple as a worn silver cross. This story shows how heavy silence can sometimes be, but also what a single voice or stance, or even just a quiet symbol, can change when confronting subtle prejudice masked as rules. Have you ever felt judged for a personal belief or expression, or witnessed someone else being judged? Or when did you find the courage to stand by your principles, even quietly? Let's share these moments of awareness and courage in the comments. If this story touched you too, help us bring more stories that explore these nuances by liking, sharing, and subscribing.